Good evening. My name is Ellen Turner, and I am acting as a host tonight for OACAC. Welcome to our virtual college exploration for all Ohio students, which is sponsored by the Ohio Association of College Admissions Counseling and StriveScan. We're so delighted you're here, and thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenter at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at oacac.org. And the presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website, oacac.org. Now I'd like to turn it over to our presenter, Dana Smith from Albion College. Welcome, Dana.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second half of our awesome OACAC virtual presentations we have this fall. Like Ellen said, my name is Dana Smith, and I am an admission counselor at Albion College in Albion, Michigan. To start off our presentation here, we've got a great big welcome from Britt, who is our mascot. And to give you guys some context, I know Michigan's not that far from Ohio, but we're a pretty big state. Albion is right here. So anyone from Michigan will use their hand because we look like a mitten to tell you where we're at. So to give you guys some context about the community I'm going to be talking about, the weather is pretty similar, so I don't have to go into that for you guys, which is great. But to start, I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of kind of Albion by the numbers, and then I'll go into some more fun stuff like student activities, what is there to do on campus, academic advising. But to start, you're going to see a lot of numbers in your college search. So when I talk about, enrollment and faculty-student ratio, average GPAs, things like that, I always prefer to tell the stories behind the numbers. So looking at this slide, you can see we're a small school. We have small class sizes, a really small faculty to student ratio. And so what that means for us is that we really value relationships. We value the connections you make when you come to campus and think that those should happen in and outside of the classroom. And our small size and being residential and liberal arts, all of those things make up what we consider a really special and unique to this community. So for example, what a small faculty to student ratio means is that you're going to get to know your professors probably outside of the classroom. They're not just going to be people who teach you and then send you on your way. I always joke, I used to cat sit for my professors. We run into people like down at the cafe or at the grocery store or walking through campus. They're really invested in the campus community here. And so it's not uncommon to see them kind of in all aspects of your life here. So maybe you like that, maybe you don't. We joke that they're always kind of keeping an eye on you. So parents generally tend to like that. But definitely if you value those kind of interpersonal connections, this could be a really great fit for you. And then here we've got some of our average application, admission test scores, and GPA, things like that. We are test optional this year, which I will talk about later in the presentation. We are all undergraduate students. So it's all students who this is their first experience with college. We're all focused on the undergraduate experience. You're not competing against graduate students for fellowships or for teaching assistantships. You're doing your own research. So those are all things that we really value as a part of the undergraduate liberal arts experience. And then these last two numbers down here, what these mean is that not only are you graduating in 4 years, which is important, especially as you consider financial aid, getting out into the career field at an earlier time, but you're also employed or in grad school or doing some kind of service within 6 months of graduation. So we really focus on giving you that well-rounded experience to send you out in the world and be super successful. So when we talk about the things that make Albion unique, bold and bold is our slogan this year. So you'll probably see that on a lot of stuff if any of you get our emails or print advertising, anything like that. When we talk about personal career plans and liberal arts skills, every single student who comes here is unique. There's no cookie cutter human being. And so we don't want your academic or personal or professional path here to look like that either. So when you come here, you might have the same major as somebody else, but your career path, your aspirations, your personal background are going to be very different from theirs. So we want to take all of those things into consideration when we're helping you plan out your academic and professional career here. So every student has an academic advisor that they work with. At first, it's your first year seminar professor, and then it's someone in your major. You might also work with staff in our Cutler Center, which is all academic student advising support, or in the Career and Internship Center, or if you're in one of our pre-professional programs like pre-health, business, things like that, you get an additional advisor. So we're really trying to set you up with as many supports as possible in order to guide you towards that career path that you have planned for yourself. I've mentioned already liberal arts, and I think we kind of throw that term out there and assume that students and families know what that means. I always joke when I interviewed here, I gave a 20-minute presentation on why liberal arts is important, so I will keep myself into a time limit here. But essentially what that means for us is you're going to be taking courses outside of your major, having experiences outside of the classroom, and experiencing things that are all meant to make sure that you are a well-rounded individual who's able to go out into the world and be a critical thinker, be able to be flexible, be a creative problem solver, and hopefully make it so that when you're going out into the workforce, you have all of these skills that make you very competitive on the job market, and just overall a really great person is always the goal when we're sending our graduates out into the world. So you're always able to access Albion's Career and Internship Center for assistance and getting you connected with those post-grad opportunities. And the hope is that while you're here, you're having tons of experiences outside of the classroom, like study abroad, which I'll talk about, internships, job shadowing, service, all things that are going to expose you to things that you might not have expected to enjoy or be passionate about. And again, help make sure that you're going to have a really successful career after Albion. So when we talk about purple and bold, it's all of these things. So of course, anyone from any school is going to show you the best of their alumni. So that is no exception for us. We've got some really great schools and great companies up here. But it is true, we have alums in every single one of these institutions, whether it's for med school, law school, engineer at Google, an accountant at JP Morgan. We really truly have alums in all of these places. And because of that, we're able to connect you with them. Maybe you get to do an internship at the Cincinnati Museum Center, and then you find yourself with a job there after graduation. We're really trying to connect you with those people as soon as possible in your career here so that you're already making those connections, have those relationships, and maybe even have a job lined up before you leave here. So obviously we've got some really great things up here, but we always say too, the best way to see kind of the prestige of a school is to look at where their alums go and what they're doing. So this is just an example of some of the things our alumni are doing right now. Awesome. So I already mentioned study abroad a little bit on my purple and bold slide. Typically, they don't let me talk about this slide because I love talking about study abroad. And so again, I will be cognizant of time and not go too in depth into this. But again, this is part of the belief that you should be going out of the classroom and bringing experiences back that are going to supplement the already amazing education that you're going to get here at Albion. So I studied abroad in Denmark, but as you can see, there are places all around the world that you can go, whether that be just for a couple of weeks, for a semester, which is the most common, a full year, having to go for a summer internship, things like that. There are tons of options to make sure that you're able to fit this into your 4-year plan if this is something you're interested in doing. We also have some domestic options. So especially now with the pandemic, we're recognizing that some students might not want to go overseas, but they still want to have some kind of off-campus experience while they're here. So we also have the Philadelphia Center. Students can go to DC, they can go to Arizona and do a border studies. So there's a ton of different options, even domestically as well. So looking at academics, as you can see, there are a lot of words on this slide, but this isn't even all of the academic program that we offer. These are kind of our overarching academic departments. So we have some majors that are embedded in these departments. So don't worry if you don't see your major on here. It might just mean that it's in a department, like marketing is in communication, so that's not on this slide. But something that we're definitely known for is our pre-professional programs. So especially for students who are interested in healthcare, in pre-law, business, which is on our most popular majors list, we have these things called centers and institutes. So they're academic concentrations that students can do in conjunction with any academic department on campus. So especially if you're a student who has a lot of different interests, but you know kind of generally the career path you want to take, you can pair anything together essentially. Students double major, they double major with a double minor with a double concentration. Some students, like if you're like me, you just majored and you were very happy with that, but you did a lot of stuff outside of the classroom. There's a ton of different options here. So these are just a few of our offerings. But definitely encourage you guys to go to the website, check out specifics, and kind of continue that and see if we could be a good fit for you academically. Athletics is another huge part of our campus culture. So as you can see here, we've got a lot of sports. I put the football background on here because football is a pretty big deal here at Albion. We have a ton of people on our football team, despite being such a small school, and they compete at a pretty high level, but we have 23 other varsity sports. And we just added men's and women's wrestling and esports for next year. So if any of those apply to you, since they're new sports, we're looking to build up those teams. So that could be a great way for you to continue in a sport that maybe you didn't think you were going to be able to. But we're very proud of those. We're excited about those new sports and very proud of the robust athletic tradition that we already have on campus. So we are Division 3. We're part of the MIAA, so we compete against Adrian, Calvin, Trine, kind of all the schools that are in Southern Michigan, but definitely a very competitive athletic conference. And D3 is nice if you are looking for a really excellent academic education, but also still continuing your sport at a high athletic level as well. But if you're like me and you're not particularly athletic, don't worry, there are over 100 other clubs and organizations for you to get involved with. So as you can see here, we have music, we have theater, we have just kind of general campus events that are put on by our union board. There's a river that goes right through campus. We have a nature center. So there's a ton to do outside of just going to class and going back to your room and doing homework. If you're a person who likes to do a lot of different things, Albion could be a great fit for you. Our students are typically involved in what most people would say is too much, but they are people who like to get involved, who like to take on leadership roles and really explore their interests outside of the classroom. Some of my other favorite clubs are Brit to Knit, and then we also have a squirrel watching society. And I just think that those are very funny. But we also have like student government, identity-based groups, club sports, if you're not looking to compete on a varsity level. So a ton of stuff to get involved with once you're here. So I want to walk through some parts of the application. I'm going to go into a breakdown of what we look for, and then a general timeline for that, and then for financial aid as well. But we are on the common application and we have our own application. Both are completely free and we don't weigh one above the other. So really whatever one is going to work best for you and the plan that you have for yourself in applying to college. Like I mentioned before, we are test optional for the fall, and that is truly optional. If you send us your test score, that can only help you. It cannot hurt you. So if you've taken it, great, send it to us. And if not, don't worry, you're still going to be considered for scholarships. You're still going to be considered for admission. So really the biggest thing we need in addition to your application is going to be your official high school transcript. And your counselor can send that to us through Parchment, or they can email it to us directly, send it in the mail. There's a ton of different options for that. So when we look at your application, there's a lot of different things that we look at. Being a liberal arts school, we try and start that liberal arts approach from the moment you enter our system. So we take a very holistic view to admission. We start with your transcript. Like I mentioned, that's probably the biggest part of what we look at. What is your GPA? What kinds of courses did you take? How, we're getting to grade trend there, that's what I was going for. How have you done over all 4 years? What does that path look like? Was one semester really rough for you for a particular reason? Have you been pretty consistent? We're kind of doing a deep dive into that transcript beyond just, all right, what's their GPA? I already mentioned here that test scores are optional, but that is on this list as well, because we will look at them if you send them. If you have a boss or a teacher or a mentor, someone who can speak to who you are as a person, as a student, we love to read those letters of recommendation. I've never read a bad one, and so it's really nice to hear someone write glowing words about you for a page and a half. So those are always really nice things to have, especially if you do have some circumstances that might make it look like your admission might be a little more borderline. Those recommendations can be really helpful for context for us. Extracurricular activities are a little part of them as well. We know with COVID that it's harder to do the activities that you were probably planning on doing. And we know that. So we're taking that into consideration. We're being flexible with that, but definitely encourage you to include any activities you have been able to do in the last 3 to 4 years. And then my favorite part is the essay. So this is optional on the Albion application and it is required on the Common App. But I always highly recommend that students fill out the essay because the more I know about you, the better. I'm the one who's reading your application, the one who gets to get super excited about you maybe becoming a part of our community. And this is where we get to make sure that you have great writing skills and you're prepared to be at a college level writing, but also just to see what makes you the person that you are. So we really encourage students to take advantage of that essay. And then finally, if you have discipline history, we'll look at that, but that's not a huge part of our decision. We just encourage students to always be forthcoming about that. And then we can always follow up with any questions if need be. That doesn't tend to be a huge issue. So the question I know is on everyone's mind, what does it cost to go here? Being a smaller school, I think that there's definitely a misconception that private schools can't be affordable for families. And so my goal in every conversation I have is to show families that schools like Albion can be affordable for them. Typically, I have this whole deck I go through that shows a bunch of different scenarios, but I wanted to just talk about it a little more generally with you all. So every student who applies to Albion gets a merit-based scholarship, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And typically that's how it'll work for most schools like us. You don't typically need to apply for any additional scholarships. We'll look at your application and apply the ones that are relevant to you, to your application and to your financial aid award. So those you automatically get just by applying to the school. And then other financial aid comes from the FAFSA. So that's the free application for federal student aid. That's really important for schools like us because our sticker price starts so much higher than at a public school. You probably will qualify for need-based aid here that you might not at a bigger school. So that's a really great thing to keep in mind as well, is that every school is going to receive the same number from the FAFSA, but what every school does with that is going to look a little bit different based on what their sticker price is, what their financial aid office believes is the best strategy for that year. And so we always try and be really transparent about the ways that we package aid so that families know what they're going to cost as soon as possible, and that's really clear for them. So your scholarships and any grants that you might qualify for, and then any of your financial aid that you receive through the FAFSA, all of that makes up your financial aid award. And once all of that is subtracted, that bottom line number is what it's going to cost for you to attend Albion. So looking at affordability, we do have merit-based scholarships that range from $23,000 to $34,000. And those are based on your high school GPA. If your school ranks, then we'll look at that. And then the academic quality of your high school. So like rigor of curriculum, things like that. But also for coming out of state, you receive a $3,000 out-of-state student grant. And if you attend a virtual or in-person visit during your senior year, you get a $1,000 senior visit scholarship. So again, we're trying to already start off with, giving yourself a little bit of a head start on those funds. The FAFSA is already open for this year, but if we have any juniors or sophomores who are viewing, that opens on October 1st every year. And like I said, that's really important to us because if we don't know how much your family can afford, then we assume you have unlimited funds to pay for school. And I don't know about you, but I've never met anyone who has unlimited funds. So we really want to make sure that you're eligible for as much as possible. And any need-based money is called Albion Commitment. And that's, again, our commitment to you that we want this to be affordable for you. And so we are willing to give need-based money in addition to anything else that you might qualify for. So every student is evaluated on an individual basis. They receive need-based packages based on the FAFSA, and then they work with their admission counselor, with the financial aid office to walk through all of those options and make sure that you really understand and are very clear on what your out-of-pocket cost is going to be. Awesome. So I just wanted to leave you all with a general timeline. So for us, your first step is going to be to apply. Like I said, our application is open. We accept the Common App and the Albion application, and we're on rolling admission. So we do have an early action deadline of December 1st, but we typically try and get your app, read it, and get that decision to you as soon as possible, typically within 2 to 3 weeks, like it says here. The FAFSA is already available, so you can add us to there, send that to us, and then typically it's about a 2-week turnaround to get your financial aid award. We should be releasing those at the end of November, beginning of December this year, for those of you who already applied or who are planning to apply and send us your FAFSA at the same time. And then between getting your financial aid offer and May 1, which is the National Decision Deadline Day, it's doing whatever you need to do in order to make your decisions, whether that's talking with me, getting connected with a coach or faculty or staff member, talking with current students, visiting. We really want to make sure we give you everything that you need in order to feel really confident about making this pretty big life decision, especially nowadays where it's more stressful even than it probably you were expecting it to be. So this is a general timeline, and I think that this will hold pretty true for most schools like us. For schools that have stricter deadlines and stricter release dates on admission decisions, when you get your decision will probably be a little bit different, but we typically all follow this kind of model. And then to end, I just wanted to leave you guys with some resources. So we've got FAFSA Forecaster, which if you have not filled out the FAFSA, can be a good resource for seeing what your EFC and other things related to FAFSA might be. Niche and College Scorecard both rate colleges based on reviews from different staff and students and faculty and parents, family members. And so you can see how schools rank into topics that might be important to you as you're making your decision. And so that's all I have for you. I know I talked a lot. I know I talk really fast. I just get so excited about Albion that it all comes out. So hopefully you were able to discern most of what I said. But that's exactly why I have my email right here in case you have any follow-up questions for me. I'm more than happy to talk about all things Albion. I also went to a small private liberal arts school, so I always offer to talk about what my experience was like and kind of dive into how you can be marketable as a liberal arts grad in 2020. So kind of anything college related, I always offer to walk families through because like I said, I know this is very stressful to be going through right now. But as someone who went through the process and is employed and loves what they're doing, there is hope on the other side of the tunnel here, even though you're in the roughest part of it right now. So I definitely want to open it up to questions. I'm not sure if we have any coming through the chat. Awesome. So I had someone ask about housing. That's something that I didn't get to cover here. So for us, I've mentioned this a couple of times, we are a residential campus. So that means that housing is guaranteed all 4 years while you're here, and students are required to live on campus their first 2 years. And then we have some other housing options kind of in the area, but almost everyone lives on campus due to affordability and just wanting to be a part of the campus community. So we have first year dorm. So you come in and you live in Wesley Hall. It houses over 500 people. So typically that fits the whole first year class. It was a little big this year, so we had some overflow, but it's awesome. It's like right as you drive into campus, it's this beautiful building. And that's where all of the first years are, is kind of a part of the first year experience. And then as you go through Albion, you get to choose from apartment style living. You can decide to stay in a dorm, suite style living. We have fraternity houses, different living learning communities, like through the languages, public health, sustainability. So there's a lot of different options once you're here. And again, just promoting that residential sense of community and really building on living, working, eating, going through school together in the hopes of building up those really strong connections. And then we have like 3 different dining options on campus. That's normally a question that goes along with housing. Awesome. So another question I have here is about diversity on campus, which is an awesome question. I don't have that included in the numbers in the beginning, so I always try and add a little bit about that. Right now, I always talk about kind of the evolution of Albion over the last couple of years. Our last president came in and really wanted Albion to look like what our world looks like. So over the last 6 years, Albion's campus has diversified not just in racial makeup, but also in socioeconomic makeup and our number of makeup of first generation students, what state students are coming from. So we're really trying to make our campus reflect the world that we live in. So from this past year's class, the incoming class of fall 2020, was about 50% first generation students. And we've definitely adjusted to reflect those changes with implementation of new resources and supports for those students. The Cutler Center, which I mentioned earlier. And then our students of color is about 30%. We have a small international population, but not super big, particularly this year with the COVID restrictions. And then our out-of-state percentages are about 65 to 35% in-state versus out-of-state students. So still opening up that market, but I work with all of our out-of-state students. So as an Ohio student, you count as an out-of-state student, which is great, even though you might live closer to campus than some of our Michigan students, which is funny. Wonderful. Well, I don't think I have any other questions in the chat, but definitely feel free to send them through. But that's about all that I have for you guys. So I will turn it over to Ellen unless we have anything else pop up here.
Great, thank you so much, Dana. You know, I wondered, and I thought you might just mention this a little bit, and I think I just saw a question pop in. Tell us a little bit more about Albion, the town. What is the surrounding town like?
Awesome question. So Albion itself is pretty small. So like I said, we're about 1,500 students, but the town itself is probably 10 to 15,000. So again, a pretty small place. I know we've got a lot of small towns in Ohio that are very similar. We've been going through an economic revitalization over the last 5 years. So the downtown has been totally redone. We have a bunch of new businesses in, and it used to be very much, there was the community in the town, but now they're very, very much interconnected. The college is an investor in a lot of the businesses downtown. A lot of our students go downtown to do work, or if they have a job off campus right there, you can walk there. It's like a 5-minute walk from campus. And so they're pretty interconnected. And then we're pretty close to Jackson and Marshall, which are slightly bigger towns. And then we're about an hour from Ann Arbor, an hour from Lansing, and then an hour and a half either way to Grand Rapids and Detroit. So definitely nice being in the middle of the state. We've got the perks of being kind of rural and suburban, but being close to a lot of the bigger kind of epicenters of activity in the state, which is really fun. But definitely if you like nature, if you like being outside, our campus, I think, is very beautiful. And I think that that's also reflected in the downtown. You have like just really beautiful red cobblestones that are modeled after what the town looked like in the early 1800s, which is really fun. And then one of my favorite places downtown is definitely the bakery. They have wonderful coffee, a great grilled cheese, and a lemon bar to die for. So lots of fun things to explore down there. Awesome question.
Great, Dana, thanks so much for giving us some really great information about Albion. And as Dana said, she urges you to contact her if there are any further questions or concerns. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so delighted that you were able to be with us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, as I said at the beginning, this is just one of many sessions that's being hosted by the Ohio Association of College Admissions Counselors. So be sure to sign up for other sessions. They're available at OACAC.org. And we really encourage you to do this as a wonderful way to find out about all the terrific colleges and universities that are available to you. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recordings in case you missed something. You'll be able to find this recording as well as other sessions recordings again at oacac.org. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining and thanks for whoever's watching later. Hopefully we'll get to hear from you soon.
Good night.